Good evening, everyone. I'm Shangrila. I'm back again. And I'm a grade 10 student from TGS, so today I'm going to guide you through a bit of my first very personal project. So when I was still brainstorming about what I should do for this project, I thought a bit about how Australia is like. So I think I should do something wild, something animal-related, because in my mind, Australia look a bit like this, or even more so like this. But my dreams quickly shattered because I soon realized that we're actually having our term here in Melbourne CBD. And I do not see much space for wildlife animals. I believe you also do not. Because most of the wild sites are actually more than 1.5-hour drive from the urban area. But I still wanted to take a look at animal psychology or animal minds as my first personal project. So I decided to change the location. This is the Melbourne Zoo. It's very much accessible since it's only 20 minutes from the downtown area. However, I was actually quite disappointed in this choice of location because in my mind, zoos look a bit more like this. When I was young, I used to love going to zoo because I liked seeing the animals. But then what made going to the zoo something upsetting for me? Well, there was this once when I was visiting the zoo, and I saw this male silverback gorilla individual sitting alone in an indoor enclosure's corner, vomiting and re-ingesting that vomit over and over and over again. And that itself is, of course, heartbreaking to watch, but what was even worse than that is that among hundreds of visitors surrounding that enclosure, no one really cared about how the gorilla is doing. Some other comments I heard was, "Ew, this is disgusting and I don't want to see this," or parents telling their kids that the gorilla is actually performing for them. Well, this is not the reaction I wanted to see, so here's a bit of an imagination of what I would like to see a bit more in the future. Well, during my project, I visited the Melbourne Zoo twice, and I attempted to look at animal psychology through behavioral data collection. And one of the most important tools I used for that was an ethogram. Ethograms are essentially a dictionary of animal behavior. On the left, we will have category, and on the right side, we have definition. Here's an example I used for gorilla data collection in my project. Well, let's see the gorilla. This is Otana. He is a silverback western lowland gorilla at the Melbourne Zoo. And here's some data I collected throughout my 1-hour observation on him. And for sure, there are many types of different behaviors in here, but one of the most noticeable one is, of course, the 64% of resting lying. Well, that was actually quite concerning to me at first because a long period of inactivity usually suggests environment deficiency. But then when I looked more into the animal's background information, I realized that this might be a midday rest because I visited at noon, and the animal might wanted to avoid that high temperature in the middle of the day. So I guess that data could be a bit conclusive because, well, animal psychology is really complicated. It's not just behavior data that matters. It's also that hormone monitoring and a long observation period throughout the whole day. Here's another ethogram I used for my project. Do any of you want to guess what animal this describes? Wrong. Yes, correct, Liam. Great job this time. This is, in fact, an Asian elephant ethogram, and here are some of them that I saw at the Melbourne Zoo. On the right side here, we have Molly, who is a female individual that was born and raised in the Melbourne Zoo. And on the right side, we have 2 adorable calves from the herd of elephant. Here is a pie chart of the data. 3 things I wanted to mention. Firstly, swaying and trunk swinging are both very classic stereotypic behaviors in captive elephants, which are a bad indicator of animal well-being. Something else I wanted to mention is the others that took up 35% of the data. While others are defined as the behaviors that are not categorized in the ethogram. In this case, referring to a lot of the elephants actually gathering around the edge of the enclosure, attempting to open the fence using their trunk, either to the indoor barn or another outdoor enclosure. Well, the reason of that behavior I got from the zookeeper was that the elephants are actually trying to get a training session so that they can earn their favorite treat. Well, something I like to point out here is that those training sessions were actually supposed to be created to foster animal behavior, animal well-being in captivity. However, the resulting behavior is suggesting otherwise because it is a bit less natural. Well, I guess the zoo also realized that because they're actually planning on transferring the elephants to a bigger enclosure that is the same size as the whole Melbourne Zoo, hoping that that will increase their well-being. Another species I wanted to take a look at was the Sumatran tigers. However, I did not get the chance to do so because they were constantly kept in indoor enclosure that were actually not visible to the public, therefore also not accessible. If you ask me how they're actually doing, well, I can only tell you nobody knows. Well, from what I just mentioned, I think it's kind of obvious that the data I collected, none of them were accurate enough to actually draw a scientific conclusion from. But then why am I doing this? Well, I personally am very interested in animal behaviors, but I do not have any professional background. And I believe I'm not the only one out there. There's probably thousands and even millions of people who care, but are worried that their care are not supported by enough knowledge. Well, I'm here to tell them, don't worry. Don't worry to ask why, and don't worry about knowing what's actually going on. Something that I noticed while I was visiting the zoo was that zoos have come a long way since my childhood. Melbourne Zoo here is for sure not perfect, but it is becoming a better model. And by having more people involved, we can help it improve even more. Another question raised to me while I was thinking that is that could zoo eventually be good enough that when we enter it, we feel like we're in the wild? And when we do that, we can actually leave the actual wild to animals. Well, personally, my answer to that question is a no, because I think artificial environments could never provide that infinite opportunity to animals as the wilderness does. Then people may ask, what kind of educational or informational resource can be provided to those who live in urban areas that do not have that much access to wildlife viewing experiences? Well, here's an example. This is a video of VR-facilitated education showing students how a wild humpback whale leap out of the water. Today, in 21st century, younger generations are being more and more exposed to newly developed technology. And why not make that a possibility for zoos? Why not make zoo a place that has multimedia facilitated equipment and technology-based place for people to actually learn about how animals behave like in the wild? Well, right now, I still don't know if the future zoos will be a more open, more enriched environment for animals or something a bit like this, technology-based. But I think either way, we're definitely stepping in the right direction. And by having more incentive and more actions, something simply like this project, we're definitely going somewhere to a better future. And that is all about my project. Thank you so much for listening. Have a wonderful night.